Well, hello. We're just waiting for people to show up and see where we're at. We are looking at, in a few minutes here, we are going to go over to look at which detox is good for you. The version we're going to be looking at this today is the switch version. I'm here, as you can see, in lovely Vancouver Island, where the sun is shining through and you can barely see anything. I'm in my shed quarters. I have a shed out the back of my farm where I do my research, etc. So we're just waiting for a few more participants to come in. And I'm about to share my screen right now.
You look like you're in viewer mode, sir. You need to go to full screen.
Okie doke.
We see you.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, that's what I saw in the first place. Okay, doke. So if that works for you, I am going to start talking here a little bit after Wendy does.
Well, thank you to all of you for joining us this evening for which detox is right for you, the switch version. Just to let all of you know, all of the lines are recorded. You should have a question and answer section for you to type your question to me, which I will relay to Dr. Willard during the last 5 to 10 minutes of the call. Just to let you know a little bit about Dr. Willard. For over 40 years, he has studied the medicinal properties of plants. He is recognized as one of North America's leading clinical herbalists, and he appears regularly in print and electronic media as an exponent of responsible herb use. He is the past president of the Canadian Association of Herbal Practitioners and a professional member of the American Herbalist Guild. He is also in the Canadian Health Food Association's Hall of Fame. Dr. Willard is the author of 12 books on the subject of herbs, including the pivotal Wild Rose Herbal Series, a trio of textbooks written to educate herbalists. 2 of his books, Mind Body Harmony and Dr. Willard Flower Essence, Emotional Alchemy and Spiritual Evolution, have been particularly popular with the general public. He is retired from clinical practice as of 2015, and he is the founder of Wild Rose College of Natural Healing, which serves correspondence students around the world. He lectures on the main lecture circuit to trade shows and MLM rallies, as well as training sessions for the health food industry, pharmacy industry, and mass market. He does many radio interviews and TV spots every year and has semi-retired to an organic herb farm on Vancouver Island. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Willard.
Well, thank you, Wendy. It's nice to hear you again and see this whole thing. Hopefully everything is going to work properly in our messaging here. The version of the which detox is right for you I've chose for today is switch, because I think we're at the time of the year where it's really good for us to turbocharge the whole thing. So we're going to be talking a fair amount about the detox, but one of the questions that I've had an awful lot, okie doke, so it's not, okay, it is, let me do it that way, is this a good time to detox with the COVID-19? So I'm going to address that as we go along, and as a little bit of a bonus thing in the last few minutes, I'm going to be talking about the protocol I've been using both for myself and other people for COVID-19. I know you're getting all kinds of information on this right now, but it will be the one that I would like to look at and to work with over this period of time. So one of the questions is it a good time to detox in general? And I would have to say that we've never had a time in history that is more toxic than right now that we are. And when I say that, yes, I realize the pollution's come down quite a bit now that we're all sequestered in our places and doing our social distancing and those things. But as an overall thing, there's so much pollution in our world and so much toxins in our food, etc. Right now, it seems to me the biggest toxin is the one of the mind. And when I say that this whole fear factor that's come along with social isolating and things like that has really got people going. So I want to address it right off the bat of what we should look at for this whole idea. A lot of people are wondering, and we've got a lot of emails and texts and things on this asking, during the whole COVID-19 situation, is a detox good to do? And I would have to go forward with saying it's the best time and it's the worst time. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're self-isolating and you're in kind of a quarantine situation and you know for sure you and none of the people right around you have the virus, then, well, you're at home doing these things anyway, and you're not going out and partying. So it's one of the best times of the year to do it, in the sense that you've got time in your hands, you've got less foods and things like this. You're kind of treating this almost like a monastery and being like a monk in your house. You might as well utilize that force and be able to work with the whole thing. And that's what I'm suggesting is a good thing to look at and to work with. Now, when I say that, for the last, 20, 30 years, I've been brain hooking my patients to suggest that the best time of the year to do a detox, first of all, is any time that fits in with you. Whenever you got 12 days set aside that you can be able to do it without a bunch of partying and stuff like that, that's a good time to do it. Well, most of us are in that situation. But the best of the best of the best is in the spring. So I've been brain hooking my patients for many, many years to do it right after Easter. Well, this next weekend, being Easter, is a good time to start it right after. Now, when I say that it's one of the best times, I'm also saying it's one of the worst times. If you have the symptoms of COVID-19, I strongly suggest you stop the detox and don't do it. If you're starting to get the sore throat, sense of smell is gone, sense of taste is gone, you're starting to get a fever, that will be a good time to stop doing the whole detox. Because what's happening is you're going through a cleansing process with a virus. So our body, as soon as it comes in contact with the virus, it goes through several different stages of immune system, and we don't really have time to be able to look at that as deeply as we want to in this case. But when we're doing a virus, our body is trying to cleanse it out, and we don't want to overdo the cleanse while we're trying to get rid of the virus. Because one of the biggest problems with the virus is that we start almost drowning in our own mucus. Now, I know this is a little bit controversial. Is the virus causing it? And there's so many things around that we have to learn and see. But when you really keep your ear to the ground, as it was, and I'm doing about 3 to 4 webinars a week right now on the whole COVID-19 with different groups, and talking with a lot of medical professionals and a lot of researchers. And so we're starting to get a much better handle on exactly how it works. And I have to say the herbs come to the front, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But the best time of the year to do it anyway is the spring. So you got to realize that our ancestors cleansed at least twice a year, and they had an organic diet out of default. They had no other choice. So we want to cleanse in the spring and the fall. This is when the leaves come out and when the leaves fall. Those are 2 really good times to do detox. The reason is this is a natural organic process. So I would have people doing it right after Easter, somewhere between now and the beginning of June anyway. So that's a good time. And we'll work through the different detoxes to see which one is the most sensible for you in that saying. We also say, again, any time that it fits in for you. but it's also one of the best things to start any kind of health program. It doesn't matter what it is. Certainly, it was never designed to be a weight loss thing, but it does work really well with weight loss. Some people have noticed they put on a few extra pounds in their isolation by eating the wrong foods, and that is very significant that they might want to lose those things before we come out of isolation. The spring is a good time to do this. If you do a detox in April, May, or June, or July, and even into August, the average person loses somewhere in the realms of, well, somewhere between 2 and 15 pounds, but the average being 12 pounds they would lose. Because this is a natural cycle at this point in time to be able to do this. When a person does a detox in January in the winter, which is one of the most popular times of the year to do it, because after Christmas, people go, Father, for I've sinned. I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Give me a detox. This is what happened at that time of year. But it does really help us lose weight. And because we're into the spring, and that's a big concern of an awful lot of people, I'm specializing this talk a little bit in that whole idea. I've been able to come through this quite well lately, losing a fair amount of weight. It's also good for any kind of ecological issue. I'm just going to call this Candida albicans, a yeast infection, but it can be any microorganism, fungus, things like that, and virus in your body that works with it. Because when you're looking at all these things, it comes down to 3 major things: terrain, terrain, terrain. What do I mean by that? No, it's not a train. I mean the soil, the terrain of your body. If you have too much mucus in your body, viruses, bacteria have a place to breed. So if we can use the detox to be able to clear the extra mucus out of our body, we will be much healthier. This is one of the reasons with the whole COVID-19, the younger people have a much easier time than the older people because they have enough tenacity, they have enough strength in their lungs, they have enough strength all the way around. So it works on any kind of ecological things, may that be SIBO, may that be many different bacterial functions. It's also good for any kind of inflammation in the body. To start a program, may this be arthritis, could it be inflammatory bowel disease, it could be inflammation anywhere in the body. It's also really good for cardiovascular problems, to build up the cardiovascular area, to strengthen the heart, to work on the blood vessels, to work on all these things. It's also one of the best things you can do to start a program in any kind of blood sugar. This would be either hypoglycemia, metabolic syndrome, or diabetes. It's safe to use along those things. Sometimes you have to test yourself a little bit more, but it will really work well in that. It's also been shown to be very good with longevity and Alzheimer's. These two kind of look very interesting because if you clean your body on a regular basis, you don't create as much plaquing in your brain, especially if you can put a suitable amount of essential fatty acids in here. I'm using really good fish oils like the Inami Platinum Fish Oil, Minami fish oils, and I'm also using things like krill for that. It's also been shown to work on longevity. There's been many, many longitudinal studies showing that people who do cleanses on a regular basis once a year, I'm suggesting doing it 2 to 4 times a year, actually live substantially longer. And the biggest one here is cancer. Now, all of these things, at first of all, might not make sense why a simple cleanse will do this. But it's been shown to go through an interesting metabolic function in our body, how this is. So when I say this is backed up by science, on reviewing 18,000 scientific studies, we can find that it's shown how cleansing, detox, and intermittent fasting, keto diet can all help these various things. It gets rid of the function. Some of this information comes from many different sources, but one of the most popular, simple books to look at is James Clement's book, The Metabolic Switch, working with this. So this can help us switch on our metabolic functions. It's proven over the last 20 years to be able to help with all of the above that I've talked about: inflammation, longevity, Alzheimer's, weight loss, and many other things. Of course, an awful lot of people are using it for weight loss, but the implications go way beyond weight loss. It works on all kinds of cardiovascular things, cancer problems, etc. Literally, the switch is a process of turning on and off the various parts of our body. Be able to go through this metabolic function. Now we know that even something like, a lot of people say, what's the best diet to do? Is it intermittent fasting? If you think so, put up your hand. If you think keto diet's the best, put up your hand. Well, I'm going to say you're all wrong. But at the same time, I have to say you're all right. What do I mean by that? Using these things for short periods of time as being very beneficial. We found that if you switch from one diet to another diet to another diet, that's quite normal. And that's quite well to do. You got to realize that over 99.9% of the history of our species has been a hunter-gatherer. Yes, we were only agriculture for, well, let's say 10,000 years out of the 200,000 years that we've been on the planet that we know of, or going back to our ancestors, 2 million years. We have lived that way. So we had times of fast and famine all the time. Even in the agricultural era, we certainly had times where there was crop failures, etc. And we always ate with the season. Well, we live in a fairly decadent life, typically up until the last little while, where we could eat whatever we wanted and whenever we wanted. We can have some of the greatest chefs in the world cook our food. Now that we're in isolation, we're actually seeing that that was a house of cards. And now we have to look at what is the sustainability around us. And by being able to go through a rotating program on a regular basis, this will actually work on most of these things. And this is one of the reasons our ancestors didn't have the same kind of weight problems we had, didn't have the same kind of chronic things like the Alzheimer's, the cancers, stuff like this. Some of the people in the world that have some of the richest foods, like in France, we're always thinking, why aren't they really fat? Because they eat the wrong food. It's because they typically rotated through their diet. We know the Greek diet is one of the best diets in the world, but one of the reasons it's the best diets in the world, they tend to eat locally and seasonally along with that. Of course, they did get a fair amount of exercise on this. This all comes down to how our body works with the various chemicals, the various hormones. We have two stages, the anabolic stage and the catabolic stage. We're either building up our body or breaking it down. When we're doing cleansing, we want to work through this various thing to do our house cleansing. That is the cleanse. So if we can take 4 house cleansing periods in a year of just 2 weeks, 12 days, twice, or 15 days, 4 times a year, that will make a huge difference on our health. If we have some critical problems, then we extend it longer and we can do a few of these things. So we want to go into the switching on a regular basis. So by doing intermittent fasting, if you've tried it, it works really good for a month or two, and then it plateaus. Same with the keto diet. A keto diet is actually a great diet. But even after 30 days, people start to get small amounts of bone loss. After 6 months, it's irreversible. So I'm a great proponent of the keto diet as long as you don't do it for more than 3 months. If you want to do it 6 months or longer, then you have to do a modified keto diet. But what's happening here, we realize, is switching back and forth, switching around from one diet to another diet and stuff like that is actually beneficial. I know at first of all, that seems a little contrary, a little made up. But as I've already pointed out, as a hunter-gatherer, that would be normally what we're doing. Hey, I'm living on Vancouver Island here, and if I was living an ancestral diet for this part of the thing, we'd knock off a whale every once in a while. I know it sounds bad to knock off a whale, but that's when there was a lot of them. That would feed a lot of blubber to all our relatives and stuff like for a long time. I grew up on the prairies. We knock off a couple buffalo, and we had a lot of protein and a lot of that for a period of time, until the spring came, and then we'd eat the berries like crazy. And then the little leaves come out, we'd eat the leaves like crazy. By doing this combination of these things, we have a much more beneficial thing of being able to work through all our metabolic runs. So it's switching around. So eating and switching from anabolic to catabolic, going back and forth over a period of time. It takes only 12 hours to switch from an anabolic stage into a catabolic stage. So really what we're trying to do is we're trying to induce a period called metabolic autophagy. Or some people call it eutophagy, but it's an autophagy, or phagy meaning eating ourselves. So we're eating ourselves. So we're going around, we're getting our little cleaners going around, the little robots inside of our body. They're breaking down everything, bringing it through, and being able to clean out our body. And that's really a way how it works. It all goes around this central group of enzymes called the mTOR. It's a function of how it works. And as you can see on this diagram, it works on everything from the GI tract, the breast, the thorax. It works on all the different parts of a body. So each one of these disciplines over the last couple of years has realized the core mechanism of how our body works has to do with this mTOR. And if you can regulate how mTOR works, it will have a great function on longevity. In fact, it's mastering the mTOR is what creates longevity and performance. And that's really what any one of the detoxes we're talking about does. It helps us create a mastery with a kind of a paint by number idea of how we can go into this whole mTOR thing. So just to remind us what intermittent fasting is, eating for 8 hours and don't eating for 16 hours is the easiest way. So that means a lot of people say they don't eat until noon and have their last meal at 8 o'clock at night. It's actually been proven to be better if you can switch that up a little bit and go towards the morning. So if you're at home and you're in isolation, then pushing it earlier for you to have your first meal at 8 o'clock in the morning and do that through to 4 o'clock, that actually works way better. That would be a more of a natural cycle for our ancestors and how we do it. You can do it however you want to. I know in a social aspect, when you're working in the office and things like that, you go out to the restaurant after, and it's quite popular in certain parts of Canada to eat late at night. But it's been shown that that's actually not that healthy for us, going to bed with a full belly. It's actually better for us to front end load. There's an old saying that I've always liked: eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and supper like a grad student that can't afford rent. Okay, I've changed it around a little bit, but eat like a pauper for supper. In our household, we do have a bigger breakfast, a moderate-sized lunch, and a very small, almost like a tapas type supper where we kind of snack around. But again, this is all over by 4 or 5 o'clock that we finished our diet when we're doing this whole function. So you can decide for your lifestyle what is the best time for you to fit it in. The idea here, though, is switching around is still the best thing to do. A keto diet is another excellent diet. It's a high-fat, low-carb, moderate protein thing. Again, what we're doing is we're trying to work on the glycogen stores in our own body to put us in a catabolic stage, so we're actually breaking down the toxins, cleaning out our cells, and doing it on a regular basis. I'm suggesting the keto diet is best only for about a month. It doesn't really kick in until about the 7th day, or a little bit the 3rd day. By the 7th day, and we'll talk about that momentarily a little bit more. But if you do it after 30 days, you can have a little bit of damage. After 3 months, it's significant. And after 6 months, it can be irreversible. So you have to do quite a bit to be able to fix it. Another one you can use is try protein cycling. In this thing, you're trying to eat, limiting your protein intake, trying to keep it as low as possible. Some people do that for 1 week every month for being able to work with it. High proteins, low proteins, almost no proteins. By going through that cycle is another way you can get this whole mTOR functioning. So these are 3 different things besides the detox. Now, the detox does these automatically. If you put these at the same time, and so I have an awful lot of patients, especially at this time of year, that we'd be doing this almost on a ritual basis in the springtime. They do a classical detox and do intermittent fasting while they're doing it, and that will help them get the maximum amount of weight loss and the maximum amount of cleansing. Now, don't get me wrong, you can have an ordinary diet and the detox, ordinary timing of a diet and the detox, and we'll go through the various things that you can do here. Your body will want to go through getting rid of the bad cells, getting the bad stuff, the toxins out of your body. Now, at the same time, a lot of people think they're going to be deprived when they're going through a detox. And I'm saying you can sit here and eat like a king or a queen. You can eat like royalty, because you can eat all kinds of things in this whole process. And we'll go through the list of it. The classical detox that's been around for over 35 years has 4 different ingredients: cleanse a herb, Laxaherb, billy herb, and the Cl liquid. It's a 12-day cleanse. A lot of people want to know why it's 12 days. And I can tell you why it's 12 days. I think 12 is a cool number, and I'm the formulator of it. Therefore, I can make it that way. It's that simple. Of course, that's not the reason I'm doing it. 12 has all kinds of other things. I do think it's a sacred number. I do think it's really important. I mean, let's face it, there's 12 months in a year. Hey, there's 12 astrological signs. Hey, there's 12 inches in a foot. JC had 12 disciples. Maybe that really makes it a sacred thing. In Platonic solids, it's the largest Platonic solid. A dodecahedron is a 12-sided figure, and it's representing sacred geometry in Platonic math. So we can say it's that, but you know darn well, those are not the reasons I chose 12. But if you want to have the least number of weekends there, if you start a 12-day program on a Monday, you only go through one weekend because you go through the one weekend, you finish on a Friday. If you have an ordinary work week, which most of us don't these days, if you start out on a Friday, you have the least number of work days if you read a standard week. Now you can adjust that to however your work schedule is and what works. But again, you guessed it, those are not the reasons. The reason we're doing this is to work with these metabolic changes. You see, when you lower the carbohydrates, and that's the key, by the way, all of these programs are lowering carbohydrates as much as possible. Let's face it, as a society, we've gone a little bit sugar crazy. We've gone a little bit carb crazy. Most chronic health problems are related to eating too much sugar. And of course, this hasn't gone away with our isolation. A lot of people saying, I can do the isolation, just give me lots of ice cream and chocolate bars. And now they're starting to come down off their sugar high and they're going, oh my God, what am I going to do now? I'm suggesting that makes it a good time. You can wait until after Easter, but that'll give you a good time to be able to work on this whole area. When you're doing a cleanse and you're lowering your carbohydrates, you go through various metabolic changes. If you look at the currency of our body is literally carbohydrates. It's sugar, it's glucose. And it's the currency, the dollar bills that runs our body. So if you're eating sugar on a regular basis, you're continuously putting cash in your pocket. So you're walking around and let's say it's still a cash society, you can use that whenever you want to. But if you really lower it after a few days, you're going to run out of it. So you have to go to your bank account, to the ATM, to get some more cash out. You go there and pull it out. Well, our bank account is our fat cells. That's where we store our energy. The energy is 8 times more concentrated in the fat cell than it is for sugar. So you break it down, you get a lot of extra energy. So you take the money out of the bank by doing that. But the good news is, by doing that, you're losing some of the fat in the fat cells. So this really comes down to 3 days. After 72 hours of not putting extra carbohydrates, having lower carbohydrates, our body starts to switch from using carbohydrates or glucose as the major currency, and it switches over to using lipids. This is the first level of ketogenesis. So it's a mini keto diet. By the 3rd day, after 72 hours, that's why you might get a little bit of headache. You might feel a little bit of addiction things. You might feel a little groggy for the first 3 days. After the 3rd day is over, you start feeling, oh, wow, I feel clear. I think I can do this diet. I wasn't sure I was going to do that for the first 2 or 3 days, but after the 3rd day, I'm on the 4th day and I'm feeling pretty good. This keeps on going. Now, when I say it goes into this process of lipogenesis or goes into a keto program, that's most of the body. The brain, it lives up in its ivory tower as kind of like a little bit of an aristocrat living up there. And it goes, I'm just going to still eat cake. That's how it is. I can do that. I'm the brain. So it still works on glucose. But if you still keep your carbs down for more than 7 days, all of a sudden, the brain goes, oh my God, there's no more cake. What am I going to eat? And it looks around, and actually the fattest organ in the whole body is the brain. The support for all the neurons is literally Gilead cells, which are fat-filled. And that's what causes Alzheimer's when that's not proper. So if you work on that and clear that out, you change in the oil, you're getting an oil change on a regular basis. After the 7 days, you get this clarity. When a patient come in after the 7th day on a detox, say, hey, doc, I can't believe I ate that crap before. I could eat like this the rest of my life. I feel so good. I feel so clear. That's when I'm willing to bet them $50 to be back on their other diet within 2 to 3 months, and they will be right back where they are. But the longer we can keep it, the better it is. So now our brain and our body are working on lipogenesis. So we're doing a full keto in there. It's kind of a mini keto, but it's a full keto, even though you might be eating some other things. By the 11th day, we go through another metabolic change again, and now we're starting to work more with proteins. And in that process, we have to break down those to be able to work along with that. That's why the program is 12 days. It's to get to that next change. The next metabolic change, by the way, is 21 days. So I do have an awful lot of patients that have done 2 classical detoxes back to back. This classical detox is the one that we've used the most. Again, it has several different ingredients in it. It has Billy Herb, Cleanse-A-Herb, Laxaherb, and Cl liquid. 3 different forms of tablets in Canada and a liquid in the program. The first one is Laxaherb. Well, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to know what that works on. It really helps, stops you sneezing. Yes. If you take enough of it, you're scared to sneeze. Just kidding, just kidding. It's to clean out the digestive tract. It's to clean out the gastrointestinal thing. It works on the ecological functions in our body. And after all, 70% of our immune system is in our gastrointestinal tract. So it's a very important thing to clear out, especially in a time like this. So it's clearing it out. Some people it's a little too strong. Therefore, we have another detox for you. Some people it's not strong enough, so they have to do a little bit extra. And that's the situation. But typically, we're going to do 2 of these twice daily. By doing 2 of these twice daily, you'll be able to slowly clean out the digestive tract and work with that. A lot of people think this is the center of gravity of the whole thing because, well, it makes them poop, and they think that's what cleansing is all about. Well, it's not just that. It's not the center of gravity. Actually, we'll look at another formula in a few minutes, which really the center of gravity. It's just not cleaning out that part. I hope you aren't being bothered by a plane. I thought there was no planes up, and we're being buzzed here by some local person who's obviously social distancing and doing their flying lessons at this point. I live far away out in the country on Vancouver Island, so there's no planes typically in this area. The next herbal formula here is Cleanse-A-Herb. Its major ingredient here is red clover, and it's, again, to be able to work on the bloodstream. It works in the dropical fluids. It'll be able to take all that fluids and all that toxins from the various cells, especially the lymphatic system, and be able to push it out through the kidneys. Billy Herb is actually the center of gravity. We'll see this in all 3 of the detoxes. Billy Herb actually works on building up the liver and cleansing the liver by being able to work with this, because all the metabolic function we're talking about actually happens in the liver. All detoxification happens in there. So everything we're doing works on that mechanism of liver. And the Cl liquid is a liquid to be able to balance out the adrenal glands to a degree, but more than anything, really work on the urinary tract, the kidneys particularly, and the lymphatic system itself. So it's a cleansing liquid. We tried to use this in tablets in the past, but we have found out the liquid works substantially better. So those are the actual major ingredients you take, but we also have a little bit of a user's manual there. It's a 12-day program with that. It goes through a whole bunch of material here. This is the first little information in there. I want you to memorize all this. Obviously, you can't even read this, I'm sure, depending on what kind of device you're doing, but it's to help me, remind me to do it, to go through with things. A lot of people have asked me over the years, what's the elevator speak? What's the Reader's Digest version of the detox? How do you do it? Well, I can easily say that we can take this from Sesame Street at times. So I'm going to say the detox is brought to you by the number 2. You take 2 tablets from each bottle 2 times daily. You take 2 squirts of the dropper in 2 ounces of water 2 times daily and expect to get more number 2s. In a nutshell, that's what it is. But the supplements are only 50% of this whole program. The diet is just as important. The diet on here comes down to many different things, but basically we can say we don't want the mucus forming foods. So there's no dairy, no flour, and no sweets. No tropical fruits and sundry other things. And we'll go through those in much more detail here momentarily. So by doing the diet and the supplements will really help. An awful lot of people says, well, what happens if I just do the pills and don't do the diet? Will it work? Of course it'll work. But I would like to say if you were a video game, you get 2 energy points for doing it that way. You just do the supplements and don't do the diet. Well, what happens if I can't afford the detox and I just want to do the diet? Will that help? Of course it's going to help. It's going to help a lot. You also get 2 energy points. But if you do them together, you don't get 4 points. You get 8 points. It's an exponential function on itself. And the reason is it pushes you through those metabolic changes that we talked about. But what happens if you cheat on day 5? If you cheat on day 5, that puts you in that whole metabolic system I talked about of changing on the 3rd day, the 7th day, and the 11th day, and puts you back to day 1. It doesn't stop you working, but it just slows it down a little bit. Now we have other programs you can use if your lifestyle means that you can't do the actual diet continuously for 12 days, and we'll talk about that momentarily. What it does is have a food section in there. You can look at this and it has different columns or different sheets, and you can have only 20% from this sheet and all you want from these 2 sheets, and there's also ones you can't have. So to put that in a little bit, and there's questions and answers there. To put that a little more succinctly, you're supposed to have less than 20% of your food acid forming. This doesn't have to be exact or anything like that. It's approximately little and a lot. 80% of your food is alkaline and neutral, and we'll look at those momentarily. No flour products. That's cakes, cookies, breads, pastas, buns. No dairy products. By the way, butter is okay. It is not a mucus forming function, and it works different. The oil in there is quite useful for you. No tropical fruits and no sweets. You know, you're already sweet enough. You don't need to take the sweets for sure. We want to reduce the acid forming foods. Even though this is column 1, we want to have less than 20% in this diet. We want to have a little as possible. So some of the foods, these are all foods we can have, but we want to have a little bit of it. Beans. Now, I'm not talking about fresh beans, string beans and stuff like that. I'm talking about lentils and pulse and various other and black-eyed peas and beans like that. Beef. You can have beef, but it has to be quite low in your diet or less than 20%. And that means everything on this whole column has to be less than 20%. Coffee. You can have coffee. You can't have a lot of coffee. You can have a maximum of 2 cups of coffee a day. And you have a choice of being black, or if you really wanted to, it could be black. We will also let you put coconut milk in it. It's kind of like cocoa cream, actually. Coconut cream is a little bit better, and that kind of thickens it up. It'll taste fairly good. It'll give it a distinct coconut flavor, but it does give that emulsification. A lot of people find it's for their mouthfeel. You can have eggs, but again, they have to be less. Most grains are acid forming, so we have to keep them down. We're going to talk about some grains momentarily. Lamb and poultry. Most nuts are too oily and they have a little bit of problem. They can be eaten, but again, the whole category is less than 20%. You can have white rice. We don't think white rice is a very healthy food, but if you're out and about and that's the only thing, you can have it. It's better than some alternatives. And black tea. Again, all of these are allowed, but the total amount has to be less than 20%. On the alkaline things, you can have all of these you want to. Almonds is one of the best things. You can also have filberts. What I'm talking about, these are nuts that are alkaline forming. You can have millet, buckwheat, and brown rice. You can have quinoa and amaranth. By the way, some of these are not even grains at all. They're cereals, but they're not grains, and you can eat all of those you want to. Now, notice I'm letting you have the grain, but I'm not letting you have the flour of the grain. Big difference. You can even have wheat on this, but you can't have wheat flour. You can have apples, peaches, pears, plums, and the berries. You can have popcorn. You can have potatoes. Baked is best. You can have pumpkin seeds. You can have tomatoes fresh. Now, if a tomato is cooked or canned, it's acid forming. But if it's fresh, it's actually alkaline. So lots of times it's the way it's prepared, it's the way it works, how you can eat it. Neutral foods, garlic, chives, onions, almost all vegetables you can have. Water, of course. Herbal teas are great. Butter is also okay, as I've already pointed out. Olive oil, tea seed oil is really pretty good. And hemp oil is quite good too, especially, but it can't be cooked. It has to be at room temperature. You can have fish oils, you can have krill oil and things like that, even though it's a shellfish, which we don't want you to have in general. Krill oil doesn't have the part in it. So that is your general classical detox. That gives you the diet, and it gives you the various things. So that's the one we've been using for over 35 years in Canada, and it's got several gold medals. Seems to get a gold medal every year for consumer appreciation, and it is the #1 sold SKU of detox in North America, both Canada and the United States. Is really good. But there's 2 other detoxes you might want to consider. The gentle detox. The gentle detox is very similar to the Canadian classic detox. In fact, it's been on the market for a little over 10 years, and it's only been on the Canadian market for a little over a year and a half. See, when we brought it into the United States, an awful lot of the people down there felt that the detox in Canada was too strong. They wanted a weaker detox because, well, they're Americans. What can I say? They're not tough like us Canadians, eh? Well, anyway, it comes down to, I thought it was a little bit prissy, but I formulated it so it would fit into their ideas. But then starting working with a large number of people, I realized, this really worked. And then I did it myself, actually. And I realized this works better for me than the other one because I found the other one a little bit too laxative for me. And so I do that. My wife needs the classic detox. I like the gentle detox. It works really good. So you can do the gentle detox exactly the same way as you do the classical detox with exactly the same diets, and you'll go through the same metabolic changes at the 3rd day, the 7th day, and the 11th day. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, social pressures, etc., they can't do it. So we allow with a gentle detox for a person to have 1 cheat per week. Now, that does mean you're not going to go through those metabolic changes. Now, yes, if you don't cheat until the 8th day, that means you'll go through the 1st and the 2nd metabolic changes. That's great. And then you'll start all over again. So you won't go through the 3rd one. But an awful lot of people have various social events, or they got a problem, which is called FOMO, meaning fear of missing out. And they got a fear of this missing out thing. So they need to have that escape thing so they can go to that wedding, or they can go to that cocktail party or that birthday party. Because, well, my daughter's having a birthday party and she'd be really, really sad if I didn't eat the cake. So I gotta eat the cake on her birthday. I'll guarantee your daughter wouldn't even know if you ate the cake or not. She's so excited about all the rest of the party things that are happening there. But that's beside the point. It does give us a situation that we can work with various functions, because sometimes we might have a business meeting or something like that, that we will look kind of silly if we're having a detox. We don't diet. We don't want to make a fuss. So we have a little bit of a cheat at that restaurant or whatever. Also, there's a formula difference here. The Laxaherb we have in the first one at Cascara Sagrada is the major ingredient. This one has yellow dock in there. So it's a much gentler cleanse. So again, and we'll put this on a little bit of a grid here momentarily, but the gentle detox is a little bit milder. It doesn't have a strong digestive function in it, or doesn't work on the intestinal tract as much. And we'll go through which one is best. Now, I want to remind you what I said earlier, that all cleansing comes from the liver. It's a major organ in the body. It's like the brain, the lungs, and the heart. We couldn't live without it. In fact, the root of the word liver in a way is live. I know I'm pushing it a little bit there, but it is very, very important. The liver really makes up the hepatobiliary area. It's part of the digestive tract, but it has over 500 different functions that it does. 500 different mechanisms that it works on. So it's a really hard worker. It's continuously doing things, but the one that we're looking at the most is the cleansing and the detox. There's an old saying in naturopathic medicine and herbology, when in doubt, treat the liver. An awful lot of people come in and we don't know exactly what's going on. So if we work on the liver and get that metabolic function, it's kind of like the apex that things are balanced around. Get that liver working better, it'll take care of itself and be able to work. So it can work there quite a bit. This is called a biotransformation. I like to call it biotransmutation, because it's like taking, base chemicals, base toxins in their body and turning it into golden health. It's like the great alchemist. That's why we like to call the liver the great alchemist in the body. It does this by an enzyme reaction. This enzyme reaction goes through 4 different mechanisms, either oxidation, reduction, hydrolysis, or conjugation. Yeah, you have to remember all of those. And it's done in 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. This would be great for my students over a period of time because it's easier to learn. It really has to do with how you turn that enzyme system on and how it moves around. I like to consider it kind of like going to the Ferris wheel. You get to the fair early, you get on that Ferris wheel, you go right on, no queue, no line, you get on, you get around. But once you get up there, you realize there's a big queue. Those are the things that are waiting to get into the enzyme reaction. And the problem is, while everyone's waiting in queue to go on the Ferris wheel, all kinds of problems can pick up. So really, in our society, we're eating beyond our capacity to cleanse ourselves. So we have these queues, and these lineups are one of the biggest things. So we want to try to keep it in that range. The liver enzyme works between a minimum and a maximum. That's how it works. We have a couple different phases, as I've already pointed out. Phase 1 works around cytochrome P450. No, I'm not trying to get too technical on here, but it goes through that oxidation, reduction, hydrolysis. It's really done on a set of enzymes. It's not a chemical. It's a group of enzymes, and there's many different pathways. There's not just one, but it works around. It cleanses out your body in that sense. So, for example, if you come across a natural substance, that's what phase 1 really works with. Let's say you drank some coffee in the morning. And what happens is the caffeine wakes you up and gets you going. And yes, it's been shown to cause all kinds of productivity, and coffee is an antioxidant. It's very beneficial. But if you keep on drinking too much coffee, it becomes a problem because it causes adrenal stress. And not only is it causing adrenal stress, it kind of overamps the nervous system. You know that kind of caffeine buzz you get? Well, that's because the liver's not cleaning it out fast enough. So you can work with that to be able to cleanse it out. Various other chemicals will work in the same process, but not everything makes it through phase 1. Phase 1 is just trying to polarize the chemical to make it, well, soluble in water, so it'll go out through the urinary tract, and that's its whole process. So it really spins around this various thing here and be able to clear it out, and that's how it works. Well, there it goes right now. You can see how it works in this thing. This is a reaction of phase 1. But any chemical that's a little bit too complex, some things that are not found in nature, like dyes, preservatives, and all kinds of things we have in our culture that weren't really found originally, they are worked with phase 2. The problem is there's a bottleneck often between phase 1 and phase 2. This bottleneck that you have there is sometimes the things that causes the most toxin. It can be responsible for all kinds of things like that, Alzheimer's and the longevity issues and cancers and many other things, MS, have all been credited for being able to have phase 2 not working. The whole idea of the herbs in the detox is to balance out these metabolic functions. By balancing them out, it has a good phase for the whole thing. During this period of time, though, we create all kinds of free radicals and reactive oxygen species. What these do, they become toxic on the body. And you can see this in this diagram here. You got the toxins here going to the body. It detoxifies. If it's an intermediate thing, it has to pass it over to phase 2, it becomes toxic. Or it can be a radical thing before it's gone through the tissue. We want to be able to push it out through the kidneys and the gallbladder as fast as possible so the toxins are released. That's the whole process that we want to do. And that's partly what phase 2 does. So again, it's great to have a lot of antioxidants in us for being able to do that. One of the best ones is glutathione. There's a whole bunch of things, superoxidistinase, etc. Beta carotene, vitamin C, and vitamin C is a very important one these days. The problem is some of these don't absorb in our body. Glutathione doesn't absorb that well. Yes, there's some high-tech glutathione that are way better. There's no question about it. Superoxidistinase, SOD, hardly ever absorbs. But the best way to get it is in your diet. all of these foods, by being able to incorporate these kind of foods. Now, when you're on the classic detox, you're not allowed grapefruit or oranges. On the gentle detox and liver diet, detox, you are allowed grapefruit and oranges. But all of these, maybe those yuppies are all right, or those hipsters are all right, having that avocado toast. Oh, hold the toast, just eat the avocado. One of the healthiest foods you can have, a good, great oil in it. But it's not just about phase 1 and phase 2, as we see in this diagram here, and working on these toxins here. We also want to conjugate them. Whoops, how in the world did that happen? Okay, we also want to have phase 3. Phase 3 is to build the toxins out of the body. We don't care what happens to the toxins. Once they're out of our body, and flush them down the toilet, and well, we've got to be a little bit responsible these days. But the point is, we want to get them out of the body. It's not just phase 1, phase 2. Phase 3 is just as important in this whole process. So when we're looking at the liver, I want to say that it's kind of like a physiological metaphor. It's liver energy, because every cell in our body has a liver in it. It's throughout our whole body. It's called the endoplasmic reticula. We have both the rough one and the soft one here, the smooth one here, sorry. And it is where we work on these detoxifications. So when I say this works on the liver to do it, it works on every cell in the body. By being able to clear those things out, we can have that whole process in there. It also works for the emotional thing, because they work on harmonics with each other. Each organ in our body represents an emotional function. The Chinese are very big into that, at least classic Chinese medicine is into that, and modern day medicine is starting to see it. You know what emotion represents the liver. What do you think it is? You're right, it's anger. But it's also subcategories of jealousy, envy, and competition. Any one of these will have a function on how our liver works. So if I see a patient who's angry all the time, I know they have a congested liver. Or if I have a person that has a congested liver, I know they're angry or have a lot of envy. They're green with envy. They have all these problems in their body. So it works on both these things. They're metabolic functions. Yes, you can use flower essence to work it. You can use counseling. We often use family constellations. But just working on the liver will work with it. It doesn't matter which way you work on it. You work on the counseling way or the metabolic way with the herbs and stuff like that. If you do both of them, you're going to get it better. As long as you get that vicious spiral going in the right direction, you can cleanse out the body. And that's where the liver detox comes in. Now, it's a 15-day cleanse, not a 12-day cleanse, because we might be doing it on an ongoing basis. Again, this one here, you get one cheat meal per week. One cheat meal per week. We're not trying to go through the metabolic change on this because it's a long-term function that we're going to be doing. It has 3 things here. We have our billy herb that we've had in all the other ones. We have our milk thistle plus, which works on strengthening the liver. And we look on the C herbaplex here. On the surface, we've already looked at the billy herb a little bit. It really works on getting phase 1 and phase 2 hooked up properly. Milk thistle is to build the liver, get it working. So this is kind of like build a little, cleanse a little, build a little, cleanse a little. That's one of the reasons we're not going through the metabolic changes. And the vitamin C. Now, it's not just an ordinary vitamin C. There's no question that 500 milligrams of vitamin C can be very beneficial for this whole area. But it's really the bioflavonoids here that are just as important. Because you see, when we look at the liver, it's kind of like a big filter. It's filtering all those toxins. But metabolically, that means that filter is actually a whole bunch of capillary beds working on it. And the flavonoids work extremely well on working on the flavonoids to get the fragile. At one point in time, it was thought this was called vitamin P for permeability factor. The idea here is to strengthen those capillaries, strengthen that filter to be able to work with it. And we also put it in a base of herbs that are working on that whole process here to be able to work with it. So, which detox is proper for you? There's many similarities between the two, and so they're pretty interchangeable. But I'd have to say the classic detox, it's designed for a whole body cleanse or cleanse in general. If you don't know what detox to do, we'd always suggest you start with the classic detox. It's the one that has been used for the longest period of time, and it's been very successful in Canada. The gentle detox is a much gentler laxative, and you get 1 sheet per week. Now, if that's necessary because you have FOMO or you have an issue that you want to be able to have a chance of being able to have a cheat during the week, or if you have issues in your body where you don't want to have it so laxative, then that's a good indication that we're going to work with a gentle detox. That's quite well. The liver detox, you also get 1 cheat meal per week, but it works most specifically on the liver. The classic detox and the gentle detox, we usually do 1 kit every, 2 to 4 times a year. Sometimes we do a couple back to back. But the liver detox is a little bit different than that. If we want to do the liver detox, we want to work on the liver, we'd always start off with a classic detox or a gentle detox before we do the liver detox. The reason is we want to clear out the digestive tract, clear out, excuse my technical language, all that brown crap that's in our intestinal tract. So it's not feeding the liver. We want to work on that properly first. And being able to do that, we can clear it out a little bit more to be able to work with that. And then we do the actual liver detox. Because the liver detox, once we start it, we might have to do it long term. So let's say we have a patient that has fatty liver. Well, it might take 3 to 9 months to be able to work on that fatty liver. By doing the liver detox 2 a month, 1 every 15 days, you do that for the whole period of time. Let's say a person has a history of hepatitis C. You want to build that liver up, cleanse that out, work with that. Or sclerosis, or some other kind of liver problem, liver congestion. By doing that on a regular basis, we'd be able to clean it out. So again, we use the liver detox if the classic and or the gentle one is too lax, because there's no lax function there at all. We use it instead of those 2 things. We would particularly do this for a person who has a history of Crohn's disease, colitis, or IBS. Maybe the classic or the gentle is not appropriate for them. Now, put this in perspective. Some people with Crohn's, colitis, or IBS have a constipated side and a diarrhea side. If they're an acute side, they shouldn't be doing those detoxes, but they can do the liver detox. If they're in a constipated side, it's one of the biggest things you prescribe. So, but you should be under practitioner care during those times. If a person comes in with reflux or GERD or one of those things, then we're really talking the classic detox, or we're talking the gentle detox to be able to work with that. If a person comes with an ecological issue like candida, then again, the classic or the gentle will be much, much more useful for them in those situations. So again, we tend to do the detoxes 2 to 4 times a year. You do it when it works in the best for you. The liver detox, we often do it continuously until you work on the underlying thing. This might be 3 to 6 months, and I've often had this go up to 9 months. Now, I know I went through a whole big bunch of stuff really fast, and it's kind of hard to have catched it all. So I have put this together in my blogs. You can go on drterrywillard.com and you can find up to a 27 blog series on various parts of the digestive tract, how it works. We got ones just on the liver. We got ones on the classic detox. And you can read through all that material with all the references and stuff. I get much more detail. Or if you're a type of person who likes to see this more in a visual kind of YouTube thing, we have a free detox course on wildrosecollege.com. We have a very active college that has courses anywhere from a single day course all the way up to clinical herbalists. We have practical herbalists, we have master herbalists, we have clinical herbalist program. We also have a Wild Rose village where you can get involved. But this is a free course. This is for you to get your feet wet to see if you're interested in learning more about that. We also have some challenges with some guided detoxes a couple times a year. I think 3 times a year. And I think our next one, and Wendy's going to pipe in here in a few minutes and tell me exactly when. But after Easter, we usually have a guided detox in that whole thing. But I did promise you before I finished, I was going to give you a little bit of the protocol that I've been using for COVID-19. This is the protocol I'm using myself, and I've been using with all kinds of people. First and foremost, as I've already pointed out, terrain is one of the most important things. What do I mean by, again, the terrain? You want to have as low a mucus forming diet as possible. So that's why you want to stop the dairy, the flour, and the sweets. You want to have the load of junk food as little as possible, because the viruses actually breed in the mucus, and literally the thing that kills people is the mucus forming into their lungs, kicking in there and not being able to come out. This is why the elderly die more than the young, because the elderly don't have enough energy, enough chi to be able to force the mucus out of their lungs. It also dries out and it gets very caked. So there's many things we can do at that stage for this. There's all kinds of technology that we can work along with that. So one of the best things to prevent having a dramatic case of COVID-19 is to do a detox. If you can do a detox for 2 weeks, you will have a much less problem if you end up getting this. So it's a good time to be able to do it right after Easter. You got to realize in China, over 80% of the people who went into the hospitals also used herbs along with it. They were using botanical things with a 95% success rate. Some hospitals are saying even over 99% success rate. One of the major things they were using is a large amount of medicinal mushrooms. So the underlying thing that we have found to be the best is reishi, turkey tail, cordyceps, and chaga. All of these will be found in the 5 mushroom blend. So we're suggesting the person takes a half a teaspoon of those 2 times daily. In our household, I put it in my coffee in the morning and I put it in my afternoon tea. You don't even taste it. It gives it's a little bit of a bitter flavor, there's no question about it, but it blends in with those things quite well, and we're having a very good beneficial with it. If I had a little bit more scared, or I didn't get the social distancing in, I might do it more often. There's no question that vitamin C is paramount with this whole thing. We're suggesting 500 milligrams every 2 hours if you think you're around it or if you're in a suspect area. This becomes very important because there's been a lot uncovered in the last week or so of showing, originally it's thought that this might have come from a bat, and there's no question these COVID viruses are found in bats. And it was thought up until just lately that bats didn't produce vitamin C. They're one of the only species like ourselves that don't produce vitamin C. But it's now been shown they produce the vitamin C to keep this virus load really low in them. So it's been shown you can actually help keep the mucus in a better shape and keep it out of your throat if you take it on a regular basis. One of the best vitamin C's is a spray vitamin C, or a vitamin C lozenge is really good. So a lot of people are sucking on high vitamin C lozenges. I'm sure you've got some in your store. There's several on the market you can work with. Zinc has been shown to be a very big trigger in here. 15 milligrams twice daily. We're suggesting that people take at least 4,000 international units of vitamin D daily. Someone like myself who has a vitamin D receptor might not need to do that in the spring. Just kidding. This is one of the reasons you find it in the northerly cold areas more than you find it in the sun belts, even though it does happen there, because a lot of people in the sun belt don't get outside either, but you want to have adequate amount of vitamin D. Elderberry, sambucas, there's no question it's had very, very good success in this in many different studies. I know you might find some stuff on the internet saying, oh, you got to worry about the cytokine storm on this. Forget about it. It does not happen. There's all kinds of signs proving it doesn't happen. It's not showing up in the clinical level, but it actually seems to be sedating this. Echinacea will help prevent you from getting it. There's several different stages of this. There's the making sure you don't get it. That's the protection. That's why you're doing the masking. That's why you're putting on the gloves. That's why you're doing the social distance. In Chinese medicine, that's called Wei Qi. That's preventing. At the first stage of it, echinacea will help a little bit. If you're into the 3rd or 4th day, forget about the echinacea. It's not going to help anymore because you have to go into deeper herbs. Again, the medicinal mushrooms that fit into this category. Because what's really happening here is the mucus is drying out in the lungs. So that shows us another thing. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Drink a lot of water. Warm water is better than cold water in this case. And so just drinking hot water with a little bit of lemon juice in it is great, or just the hot water by itself. Normally, we suggest a person has 1.5 liters to 2 liters a day. In this situation, we're saying you might want to double that, 3 to 4 liters of water a day to keep everything moving. If you start getting that cake mucus in your lungs, you want to have an awful lot of bulby things like the whites of green onions or garlic or just onions in itself. That'll help clear it out. Licorice is really, really excellent for this. In fact, there's an old famous formula that's in Chinese medicine. You take honey glazed licorice and barbecue it. And you mix that with the white of green onions and ephedra, and you make that into a tea. And sometimes you put super bitter almonds in with that, and that will clear that out of your lungs. Honey is an excellent thing. There are many different syrups that you can get. The Chinese have one called sea coconut that's really good. Pipe has been really good, and it's been used in quite a few people to clear this out. You want to just liquefy the mucus as much as possible to be able to bring it out. Now, I'm going to say basically that's it. There might be some questions that have come up, and I'm going to see if Wendy can unmute herself at this point in time and be able to look at that. Can you do that, Wendy?
Can you hear me, Dr. Willard?
I can.
Super. Okay, so we'll do our best to get through all of these questions here. I'll go through the ones regarding the diet first. Is stevia acceptable on the detox?
No, it's not. I know that's a drag, but you're already sweet enough. You don't need the stevia. It's actually the stevia itself. First of all, it's partly the flavor that affects you. It actually, if you take stevia, you still up your insulin levels in the body, and that makes us corrosive. So stevia is not allowed. In fact, there is no sugar substitute that is allowed. You can have fruit and fruit sugars, but not fructose, as long as you're actually eating the fruit itself. If you cook it, like a cooked apple is twice as sweet as an ordinary apple, you can do that.
What about almond milk and oat milk?
Both of those are quite good as long as they don't have sugar added. We've been using, we have a little recipe book that you can have, and that recipe book has all kinds of things, including how to make almond milk itself, and a lot of recipes you can do with the almond meal to make little cookies. My wife is German, and when I put her on the first detox, she was going to kill me up until the 3rd day, and then she realized she couldn't miss her kuchen and coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's tradition. You got to do this. So she created a recipe for a chocolate latte made with coconut cream, coconut milk, almond milk, and a little bit of chocolate in it. Yes, you can have chocolate as long as it's black chocolate or just the 100% chocolate. In this case, we're actually grinding up the nibs or the actual chocolate itself and putting a little bit of the almond milk in with it and making almond cookies that are made just out of ground up almonds. So yes, you can have the almond milk, and the oatmeal milk is also all right.
For someone who is vegan, you've suggested fish oils are a great EFA source. What about for vegans? Would flax oil be suitable?
I'm typically not liking flaxseed oil. There are many reasons, and it would take a long debate over why I'm still down on flaxseed oil. And I still think the science is not in the right place. You can use hemp oil, no problem. There's all kinds of seaweed oils you can use. There's lichen oils. There's a lot of omega-3 sources right now of vegan sources you can get, and Garden of Life has several.
What about avocado oil?
Avocado oil is one of my love affairs, I must say. I'm making all kinds of medicine in avocado oil. I'm making CBD mixtures for my cancer and critical ill patients in that. I'm using avocado oil on all kinds of things, and it's quite all right, yes. But it's not the same as an omega-3 oil.
Regarding supplements in general, when you're on any of the detox programs, vitamins, minerals, omega-3s, would you continue taking them?
The answer is yes and no. Is that good enough? No, of course it's not. Any vitamin that's building, we tend to stop during a detox. The reason is you're kind of wasting your money by throwing them out. Now, again, during this season, I would strongly suggest you do vitamin D and vitamin C just to help prevent. But we wouldn't normally do the minerals for the 12 days. You're not going to get calcium deficiency in 12 days by not taking it. But the omega-3 oils and all the metabolic herbs, let's say you've got menopause and you're taking special herbs for menopause, or you've got various herbs or various formulas using for those, you would do those. And of course, you would not stop your pharmaceuticals. If you're doing any pharmaceutical for adjusting blood sugar, you might want to test your blood a little bit more, because lots of times people find they don't need quite as much.
I'm sorry, did you include probiotics on that list?
Probiotics are excellent to take with this. You're going to get more bang for your buck if you do it after the cleanse. We certainly do it in the liver, for sure. But even the classical, you're flushing a little bit of the probiotics out. But I, myself, when I do it, and I do it 2 to 4 times a year, I do the probiotics straight through. Because actually, 70% of our immune system has to do with the probiotics. So in that list of things for COVID, I should really put probiotics. I'm also taking turmeric on a regular basis to keep the inflammation down. But I'm an old guy, so it's good for me.
Just one more diet question. Can I do a mini fast at the same time, having only celery and salads?
Yes, you can. You're not going to get the same function. You will get some function with the roughage. There's no question about it. But part of the program is doing the food and the roughage. I know it seems kind of strange, but by eating on a regular basis, an active cleanse, the food is actually a very active component with it. And even though you might think celery and lettuce is, what should I say? You might think they got a lot of roughages. They don't. They're like 90% water. By eating the other foods, you can do that at another time. And if you're doing it because you want to have weight loss, you're actually going to lose more weight by eating the roughage, because it gets that whole metabolic function moving along.
For someone who is dealing with severe hot flashes, severe stress, and high cortisol levels, which detox would you suggest for them?
The liver detox.
For someone who is dealing with increased anxiety, possibly panic attacks at this time, are there any specific herbs you would suggest?
There definitely are, and this is a very, very common problem right now. In fact, I have to say, and the virus that is causing emotional, mental things, the actual emotions themselves that is in our mental, emotional level is almost worse than the virus itself, because the fear factor, how it's going to affect the economy, how it's going to affect us personally, etc., is really big. One of the best herbs for this, again, is reishi. Another one is cordyceps. Another one is chaga. All 3 of these really help this whole thing. Turkey tail will also help to a degree. So again, we're talking about the same thing I'd use to help prevent the COVID-19. But really, reishi, cordyceps, if you just have them by themselves, is excellent for that. We've also been using things like a little bit of valerian. We've been using hops, and we've been using passion flower quite a bit for these kind of things. If you have access to flower essences, the best one for this is the red clover flower essence. And we usually mix that with the 3 yarrows.
If someone has been diagnosed with a fatty liver and does not have any damage yet, according to a FibroScan, which detox would you suggest for them?
The liver detox with essential fatty acids. So you ask, could you use omega-3 oils? I'm saying in this case, you have to use omega-3 oils. And I would put out a little bit of extra money and almost for sure go for krill, because the krill is the only one you know for sure is going to get in the liver. The other ones, not so much. You can, but you might not get as much.
What is your opinion regarding COVID and its relationship with insulin resistance?
I'm suggesting if you're insulin resistant, I don't think it causes it as such, but if you already have it, it will make the problem a little bit worse, and you're more susceptible to any kind of insulin resistance. So really, to have a diet that is really low in carbs during this period of time is extremely smart. And again, all of the, even if you didn't do the herbs or the supplements with the detox, if just doing the diet would be quite acceptable. So there's no question that sugar metabolism is an issue. I used to have a clinic in Hong Kong for a while, and we never had these problems when I was back there, but I was just back in Asia, in Wuhan, et cetera, this fall, doing a tour of, at the 10th International Mushroom Conference, and we found that sugar was a very big part of the diet over there that wasn't in the past.
So just, we'll take one more question, and it's regarding fermented foods. Are they acceptable during the detox programs?
It depends on how they're fermented, if they're all right. If they're salt brined, so that will give you olives and salt lactobacteria pickles and all kinds of things, the answer is yes. There's no problem with them. So if you have real true sauerkraut, lacto, salted, truly fermented sauerkraut, it's excellent. If you get the ordinary sauerkraut that's in the stacks, not refrigerated, in the stacks of the supermarket, you don't want to have that one. So truly fermented foods are quite good. We try to keep the soy sauce down a little bit because of the wheat flour in it, but even in miso, we can use that. I try to keep the soy sauce down because of the quality, but if you have a really high quality tamari or one of those ones, the miso and stuff like that, it's still okay. So I'm a very, very big proponent of the fermented foods.
Thank you so much, Dr. Willard, and thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. If your question went unanswered this evening, please feel free to email me at webinar@gardenoflifecanada.com. Again, that's webinar@gardenoflifecanada.com, and I'll do my best to get it answered for you. Dr. Willard did mention the Facebook group, Wild Rose Guided Cleanse. Our next group challenge will be starting April 20th. You may want to check it out there. As a gift for joining our Facebook group, you will also receive a downloadable version of the 2019 edition of the Wild Rose Cookbook for Cleansing, which outlines the recipe for the almond biscuit cookies that Dr. Willard was referring to. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Willard, and to all of you, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.